This video is brought to you by NetSuite by Oracle. If you're a CEO who's tired of QuickBooks or tired of the nonsense of running multiple programs, then upgrade to NetSuite to more effectively run your company. It was just announced that the Detroit Lions are going to be trading their quarterback, Matthew Stafford. And man, it's said to be a mutual agreement. It's said to be like, yeah, we came to terms. We both agreed it's best. But the reality to me, it's probably that. And the rumor is, I'm not just saying this, it's also a rumor that Stafford likely wants out. He probably said, hey, I want to trade. I want to get out. Now, I'm really curious. Does that mean he doesn't believe in Dan Campbell? Is that like, hey, this new coach, I'm not down for this. I don't want to work with this guy. Or what I think is more likely is that Matthew Stafford, regardless of the coach, just doesn't want to be in Detroit anymore. He probably wants a chance to go somewhere and compete for a Super Bowl. And I think he realizes, like, I love Detroit. I had a good time here, but I don't know if good time's the right way to put it. He's like, I've been committed to this team and the city, but it's just not worked out. It's not happened for me. And Matthew Stafford has had 3 different head coaches. He had Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell, then Matt Patricia. And they've rebuilt their entire team around Matthew Stafford, not once, not twice, but 3 different times. And in that pursuit, they've only had 4 winning seasons. So it's not been pretty. It's not been good. And some of those winning seasons were like 9-7 twice. So like it's not been a good run for Matthew Stafford in Detroit. And it's not really all his fault. It's kind of sad. I believe, first of all, I think it benefits Detroit to trade him. They can get probably some good trade value, a good draft pick or 2. They can restart with a young quarterback. If you're going to rebuild your franchise, you probably want to get a young gun who can really, truly jumpstart your franchise, a guy like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. Plus, I think it's also weirdly, it's kind of the honorable thing to do. Matthew Stafford has done so much for Detroit. Feels like the right thing to do to let the guy walk at the end of his career, go try to win before he retires. And then also forcing a quarterback. If Matthew Stafford really does want out of Detroit, it's not healthy to force a quarterback to play for you. That happened with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati, where if the guy doesn't want to be there, even if he's like trying to gut it out and give you his best effort, it's just not healthy or right to have a guy who really hates playing there try to be your franchise guy. It's not a good, healthy relationship or conducive. I think if Matthew Stafford really did say, I want out, I'm pretty sure Detroit can recognize, yeah, if the guy doesn't want to be here, it's not right or helpful for us to force him to be here. Let's trade him while we can and get good value for him. I would imagine that the Lions already have the phone ringing like crazy. There's probably a lot of really great trade offers already. They're waiting, they're listening, they're negotiating, trying to get the price up higher and higher. And when I think about people don't understand how good Matthew Stafford is. Like, he really is a guy who, if Matthew Stafford spent his career in New Orleans or really Seattle or with a good coach and a good team around him, a good organization, Matthew Stafford might be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, people don't understand. I should do a film analysis of Matthew Stafford. People need to understand how ridiculously good Matthew Stafford is. He's not even like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback on a bad team, but I think Matthew Stafford's better than Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers might be a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks of our generation is Matthew Stafford. And when I think of Matthew Stafford, I think of the game where he separated his shoulder with right as time expired against, it was the Browns in 2009, his rookie year. And the trainer said, you can't go in the game, it's over. And for some reason, the Browns called the timeout, which allowed Matthew Stafford, who went out of the game injured, to come back in the game. And with no time on the clock and a separated shoulder, Matthew Stafford threw the game-winning touchdown. It's so unbelievable. That's the kind of guy, when we talk about Matthew Stafford, he's an amazing quarterback who's put everything on the line, got a ton of fourth quarter comebacks. He's a ridiculously good quarterback who's just wasted his entire career with a terrible, terrible organization. Now, there are a number of teams that could potentially trade for Matthew Stafford. The Colts are number 1 to a lot of people. My number 1 team that I want to see Matthew Stafford on is the Denver Broncos. I really look at Denver and go, if you add Matthew Stafford to that team, a team that's got a ton of really good players, if they add Stafford and if they can trade away Drew Lock and a draft pick, they have the number 9 overall pick. If you can trade away draft picks and a Drew Lock who's not going to be a starter for you if you trade him away, if you can keep your starting players you already have, then Matthew Stafford makes you a Super Bowl team. I mean, here's what they would have just on offense alone. 2 running backs, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, if they both come back. Receivers, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick. 2 tight ends, Noah Fant, who is a star. People don't understand how good Noah Fant is. He's a star in the making. He just needs a good quarterback to get him the ball consistently. They got Nick Vanette, another good tight end. They got a good offensive line. They invested heavily in building their offensive line. They've got a great defense. Again, the Lions have the number 9 overall pick. Sorry, the Denver Broncos have the number 9 overall pick. If you trade the number 9 pick for Matthew Stafford, maybe some other draft picks too. I mean, I'll trade you a first, second, and third to keep every starter I have and add Matthew Stafford. Denver could win a Super Bowl next year, and the Lions would get 2 top 10 picks. And then also you're trading Matthew Stafford out of the NFC to the AFC, so you're playing a team you wouldn't play in the playoffs. You're never going to run into Matthew Stafford in the playoffs or just generally. So if you can trade Matthew Stafford to Denver, that's a great move. There's a couple other good choices. A lot of people love the Colts. They got a good team. I think Denver's receiving core is better. They got a really good offensive coordinator. They've got a lot of weapons, a good offensive line. Now, the Colts probably run the ball better, but it's a coin toss. I can see both. I think Matthew Stafford would be happy to be with Denver or with the Colts. Now, the thing is that Denver has a better draft pick, the number 9 pick, versus the Colts have a much later pick because they made the playoffs. So Denver can probably give a better trade package for Matthew Stafford. Washington has a good defense. They could trade for Matthew Stafford, although they don't have as many weapons on offense. If I'm Matthew Stafford, I don't know that I would want to go to Washington. You have the 49ers. To work with Kyle Shanahan and play with the 49ers. Now, they lost their defensive coordinator. That's a big deal. They do have the number 12 overall pick. They could trade that for Stafford and some other picks. The Patriots are rebuilding, but they do have Bill Belichick. They do have a ton of cap room. They could trade the 15th overall pick for Stafford. The Saints, if Drew Brees retires, that could be a good spot. I want to see Matthew Stafford go to the 49ers, or really my top 2 teams are Denver or the Colts. Denver has very little change happening there. The Colts they're only losing their offensive coordinator who didn't even call plays in Indianapolis. So my top 2 teams for Matthew Stafford are the Colts and Denver. Now, if Matthew Stafford does get traded, he has to sign off on the trade. So I'm sure that he's going to tell Detroit, like, hey, here are the teams I want to go to. He can facilitate a trade to some degree. And I think the Patriots are farther from a Super Bowl. If I'm Matthew Stafford, like, the Patriots are cool. Like, they've won before, but I'd rather go to a team that's got a loaded roster with good receivers and good weapons. And I think the sleeper here again, Denver. Everyone's talking about Indianapolis. Denver's the team. They got that tight end, Noah Fant. They got great receivers, a really good defense. If I am Matthew Stafford, my number 1 team would be the Denver Broncos. And I think a lot of people, because I would imagine Matthew Stafford wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to play, win, have fun. He's had 4 winning seasons in his entire career. That's very sad. He's 32 years old. The guy wants to end on a high note. And the Jets are in the mix. People say the Jets should trade for Matthew Stafford. I think the Jets are better off trading for Deshaun Watson. I don't know that if you can trade Deshaun Watson for the number 2 overall pick, I'd also rather have Deshaun Watson than Matthew Stafford. He's younger. I think he's elite. He's amazing. So I think the Jets, people are saying that the Jets are in the Matthew Stafford conversation. I think the Jets are in the Deshaun Watson conversation, really. And so, I'm excited for the Matthew Stafford trade. Like, I think finally Matthew Stafford might win some games and potentially get the recognition he deserves. And he's 32 years old. Like, he's 11 years younger than Tom Brady. I don't think he's going to play as long as Tom Brady. But Matthew Stafford has some good football left in him. And I think if he can go to a good team, win some games, that's really going to help. Forget, like, winning. It's going to help the legend of Matthew Stafford. People are going to start to recognize, oh, yeah, Matthew Stafford's amazing. He really deserves way more respect than he's ever gotten.